Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Life. This is the podcast where me, Alice, and my dad, Franklin, are talking about real issues that specifically impact my generation.
Absolutely, and we're just getting authentic.
Yep, getting real,
getting raw, and right down to brass tacks, and maybe having a few laughs with it
along the way. Well, today we're talking about really, I think, not a common spoken about issue, but our question today is, how do I find where I belong?
Fascinating. An unusual question.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And this is, community has been something that's been really important in my life.
It's an existential question.
It is, a little bit.
Talk to me about belonging.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I think I had grew up in an international school, which means that people came and went every 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So my close friends was always changing.
Very transient.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And even within my church communities, I had some communities that lasted, but most of the time, after a few years, they would fade.
Yeah.
And it has been hard, and I feel like over time I just learned how to be really independent.
Yeah.
How to just survive with few friends, and I think there's pros and cons of that.
Yeah.
Because I think we will go through seasons where community isn't as available as we would like it to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is just you and God and a friend.
Yeah.
And I think that is okay.
Yeah.
And I don't think you need to be beating yourself up if you don't have a community. But also, today we're here to talk about that desiring community and having community is actually a part of God's will for us.
Yeah. Amy, my wife, your mother, and I have always said the difference between a house and a home is your community.
Yeah.
So it is really important that you.
It is really important, and I think today we need to talk about community and also talk about the pains that community have given to people, because I personally have felt a lot of pain from community, and it's not just pain from communities that have to end, because sometimes seasons happen and seasons end, and you sometimes have to learn to let things go.
And at your age group, there is a lot of transition points.
Absolutely. You head to university, you end university, you go to a job. There is transitions, and I think a part of that is we need to love the community that we're in, but when it ends, to be willing to let it go.
Have a good transition.
Yeah. That is so key. But also realize that transitions are going to be hard. So for me, as an example, I was involved as a youth leader in an organization called Young Life for a really long time. So I was there for about 5 years, I'd say. 4 or 5 years.
I guess so. Yeah.
And
it was a good experience.
It was a great experience. I loved it.
Yeah.
And then one year, the main leaders were leaving. So Young Life kind of just...
It imploded. Really.
Yeah. Not that anything disastrous happened. Just everyone was
came to an end.
Everyone kind of ended up leaving at the same time.
Yeah.
But I was still here. I had still a few more years of high school. And it was rough. It was rough.
Yeah, that was a tough time for me.
Because all of my closest friends, they had left. They had gone with Young Life. But I also was still there. I was still in the same place. I was going back to the same church. But a church or community place doesn't feel the same when the people you love aren't there.
Yep. So can I ask you, what did you do that worked and what didn't work?
What I did end up doing was I did take a break from the church. And partially was because of COVID, and partially was because it just... I was walking in there with an empty heart. You know? I didn't have the heart to love anyone else, because all the people I had loved weren't there. And so I took a break, and sometimes you do need to take a step back. But then also I found other communities. In my last few years of high school, I had an amazing community at high school. They were people who made me laugh. They were people who made me smile, and going through last few years with so much work, it was so important to have people who just made me smile.
Yeah. Okay, so coming back to what you said before, okay, you took a break, And yeah, taking a break, sometimes you need to do that.
Yeah.
But coming back to even what we said earlier, having a good transition. If the transition had been better, if it had been possibly managed in a better way, then maybe you may not have experienced so much suffering as
That's
you did.
true. But also, I was ready to move on.
Yeah.
And that was also the problem.
Yeah.
Was that I was ready to move on, but I was still stuck.
Now, because some of our listeners may be experiencing something similar in their church, and they might come to the conclusion out of this that okay, I'm not feeling it anymore, so I'm just going to leave.
No, don't do that.
And I don't think that's good, because actually I don't think that's a good transition. And I also don't think that that's a good reason to leave a church. So I think a good reason to leave a church is A, because God is calling you to something else, or B, actually you've grown as much in that environment as you can, and actually now you need to step into a place where it's going to challenge you.
Yeah.
Again.
And I think that's really valid, because in my situation, it was all I could do.
Yeah.
There was nothing new for me to transition to.
Yeah.
And I think that's also a key for a smooth transition, is when you leave something, you need to be going to something new.
Yeah.
But also there are seasons when you need to stay and fight. So for me, after about a year, I decided to go back.
Yeah.
After about a year, I decided to go back, and I joined the young adult community. And at the beginning, it was hard. It was really hard. It took so much energy and courage for me to even be able to walk back into the building. But then I learned new people. I met new people, and I now go back, and there's new people there that I love.
And that's exciting,
That
actually.
is so exciting.
Because there is hope for fresh beginnings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that in transitioning to a new season, it's hard, and there's no right way to do it. But do it with God. Do it with God.
So let me ask you, Alice, what do you think are some important elements that create this sense of belonging?
I think a sense of belonging is being known. That's how I always say I feel most loved, is when I feel known. So for example, I'm not a huge fan of pizza.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people...
Because Young Life killed pizza for you.
Literally, Young Life killed pizza for me.
Okay. They did get the greasiest pizzas on the face of the planet.
For like 5 years, every Sunday, I had Domino's pizza. And just now, I'm like, okay, I'm not like I hate it, but I'm like, if there are other options besides pizza, I will take those. Because I don't like pizza, okay?
It did have a lot of grease.
It had, you could see it. There was like a layer.
Yeah.
It was, that was bad.
Okay, moving along.
Moving on. A sense of community is feeling known. But I think that sometimes we need to go into somewhere actually wanting to have community.
Yeah.
Because you can know people and not let them know you. Yeah. And it takes...
So your transparency.
Honestly, I think your transparency, your vulnerability, your willingness to let them show the real side of you, that's what makes you feel known.
Yeah.
Because, for example, with me, I have a funny side.
Yeah.
But I, for a long time, was quite unwilling to show that to certain people.
Yeah.
Because I think in the past, I'd felt like my humor had caused people damage when I took it too far.
Okay.
And recently, I've just been learning to open up my funny side more, and that actually makes me feel so much more known. Yeah. Because I feel like when I don't show my funny side to people, they're seeing half of me. Yeah. And that they're not seeing the part of me that I show around my family. Yeah. The part of me where I'm actually really comfortable with people. And with this young adult community I've been attending, it's only been in the past little while where I've been showing my funny side more. Yeah. Because I felt like it made me immature, my funny side. And it just,
Well, you have to feel safe.
Yeah.
Right? You have to feel safe to be able to express yourself.
Feeling safe often comes in relation to trust. And I know for me, it took me a while to trust people again just because of how I've been hurt.
Yeah.
And sometimes communities, they hurt you. And a big thing for me is communities disappoint me. Is I have felt disappointed by communities, which often has led for me to discouragement and to stop believing in community.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big issue I want to address here, is that don't give up on community.
Yeah.
Because there are people you're going to find.
Yeah.
And God has put it in our hearts to have community. And there are people who are going to show up.
Yeah.
And there are people who are going to stay.
Yeah.
And it may not be everybody. But you love them, and because there's always somebody new to love. And I think that's sometimes the key with me was I want people in my life who would stay forever.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes friends are friends for a season.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're for longer. And I think you need to accept the way it goes.
Well, and part of that is accepting what this relationship actually is at the moment. And allowing yourself to be in this friendship, and maybe this is only a 5 out of 10 friendship, maybe it's a 7 out of 10 friendship, but it doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10 for it to be valuable.
Yeah. And a thing we talked about is like circles of intimacy.
Okay.
At school, where you talk about the person closest to you is God. He is the person absolutely closest to you, but the person out can only be one person.
Yeah.
So you have one person who knows you the best.
Okay.
And then from that you have 2 people.
Yeah.
And then 3 and 4. But I think that's really valuable, because sometimes you have like 8 people who you want to be the closest, most important to you people in your life. And I think we sometimes need to realize that, hey, we don't have the time or the energy to share our heart with a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
That sometimes you share your heart with one person, or sometimes you share your parts of your heart with different people.
Yeah.
And it's also valuable to note when seasons change, relationships change. So for example, a big one, when you get married.
Yeah.
When you get married, your friendships are going to change.
Kids.
When you have kids, your friendships change.
Huge thing.
But then also don't let that impact your friendships, because if you choose to prioritize a relationship, then it can make a way.
Yeah. I think that's very wise, Alice. And friendships are so important. These relationships are so important, and the ability to be in a moment, to be in a place, to accept something for what it is and treasure it for what it is, and be that the ultimate or be it something less than that, and to be able to take good things from that experience. It does hinge a lot on this sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And
because you need to feel like you belong somewhere with someone.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, is us having a sense of belonging doesn't always mean that you have a community of 10 people and you have a place, but it means that there is somebody or someplace you can go to where you fit in and you belong.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at the Bible, for example, God said it was not good for him to be alone.
Yeah.
That was the first thing God ever said that was not good.
Yeah.
Out of everything.
You're right.
It's the first thing he said that was not good, which must mean that it's not good.
Yeah.
Like, it's not good.
Yeah.
And we often live in such isolation. We have friends, but we don't actually tell them what we're thinking.
Yeah.
We have friends, but when they ask if you're okay, you say, yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And I think
relationships have gotten shallower.
They have. And
that's not good.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I understand. Because there is not people aren't going to come up to you and suddenly share your heart. Yes, it has to be built, but often it's actually the problem is us.
Yeah.
Is that we have to be willing to say, hey, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
I've been struggling recently.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
Or to say that, yeah, I'm doing great. And this little thing happened and I want to tell you a story.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And
it's about authenticity.
It is all about authenticity.
Yeah. Wow.
And I've also, though, learned through some of my experiences that sometimes you have to let friends go. And that has been some of the hardest things I've had to do.
That's hard.
Because sometimes friendships they fade.
Yeah.
Sometimes you had intimacy and then it doesn't suddenly feel right anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all for fighting for friendships.
Yeah.
But I'm also all for you both got to be fighting.
Yeah.
And also, if you're fighting so long that it feels like a battle, then I don't know if it's always right to say, because friendships flow.
Yeah.
There is a sense of intimacy that flows, and sometimes there are patches where you have to fight and you have to stay, you have to communicate, you have to talk, you have to figure it out. But if there are friendships where you're drifting and you're fading, it's okay.
Yeah. There has to be that balance in that. You know, if you're both fighting for it, great. If it's just one-sided.
Because also, if you're fighting for something, then it's hard. If you're looking at your friendship and you're like, oh yeah, I'm fighting for you. And I'm like, I don't want to have to fight for my friends.
Yeah.
I want to be able to walk with my friends and figure things out.
Yeah.
But friendships are complicated.
Friendships are complicated. But here's something you learn later in life, is actually you can pick up old friendships again.
That's valuable.
Sometimes the
They're better.
second time around is even better because you've both changed in the meantime.
Yeah.
And you'll discover that actually maybe there was more even during that time. And you get together for coffee with someone that you haven't seen in 20 years and it's like no time
Yeah, no time has
disappeared.
passed. And I love
those are
friendships.
special moments. You know, that's really, really good stuff. So you know what? God has designed you and built you to be in community because God himself is in community.
Yep.
He
started in relationship.
He's got a little advantage on that. I'm not sure that's fair.
He does.
Yeah.
They know each other's thoughts. They've got advantages.
They got it figured out.
But we're made in God's image.
Absolutely.
And there's a part of us that needs to be in relationship with him, but he also wants us to be in relationship with others.
Yeah.
So my biggest encouragement is don't give up on friendships.
Yeah.
Don't give up on community, because community may have hurt you in the past.
Yeah.
Friendships have hurt you in the past, and you may get hurt more in the future.
Yeah.
But they are worth showing up for.
Yeah.
And they're worth investing time for.
Absolutely.
Because they can be the most valuable thing you ever have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is so wise, Alice, and thank you for sharing your heart with that. Hey, God bless everybody, and we appreciate you joining us here on Real Life, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.